Folks, as I assessed when they came out on June 30th, the first batch of ineligibility letters were simply that, the first batch, mostly cases that unfortunately, and I think unfairly, have been piling up for months without a decision being shared with the aspirant. My prediction then, sadly, was that they will come as cases are deemed ineligible. Confirmation this morning from one of my longtime viewers that they had received an ineligibility letter. In their case, elderly parents, both cases were under review for the father and for the adult son, who's in his 40s or 50s. The elderly father's case came back approved, and this person's case was ineligible. They were honest when asked the questions, and unfortunately, it looks like living in what used to be a first world country, but now is a third world country, seems to be working against a number of South African refugee aspirants. Someone who did something foolish or mistakenly when they were younger may be paying a heavy price for their transgressions in their youth. When I say youth, I'm talking about as an adult, not as a minor. And that appears to be the case on more than one of these ineligibility letters that are going out. Also, a few others who contacted me about ineligibility letters this past week, contacting me about things that are legal in South Africa, but not legal under the federal government of the United States. And we don't know that this is the reason for the denial. I don't think it would be. But in both cases, they suspect that actions that they've taken that are legal in South Africa are frowned upon in the U.S., and that's why they're ineligible. I don't know. Once again, those letters only say ineligible. Now, in the case of the second and third ones I'm talking about, these people actually did a freedom of information request. It came. And the letter that they sent me shows that it gave the reason for it and says it's non-waiverable. Strange. But the letters unfortunately continue to come for some folks in South Africa. I remember 2 weeks ago when someone said it's unfair that my family can't go over. And I appreciate where that person's coming from. But unfortunately, the unfairness is not from U.S. CIS or the U.S. government. The unfairness is from the actions that person took long before they met their wife and had children, none of whom can come over with them as a primary applicant. Puts them in a very difficult position. So it does raise the question, will this split families apart? And while I empathize with people, I'm gobsmacked that people are acting like this is a surprise that families would be split. I have said this from the very, very, very beginning, that families would be split. And not because of ineligibility. That's not why I stated it. I said because there'll be people who refuse to leave inside of families. I already know a couple who married less than a year getting divorced. She's staying, he's coming. Also in Hermanus last year at my meet and greet, a gentleman came, his wife was with him. She said, I'm not going over. He said, I'm going. I don't know their status. Perhaps if I get back to South Africa, I'll find out. But now we have a situation where people in South Africa are acting like Africans and think that their family includes people beyond the nuclear family, which legally it does not. It's only your nuclear family or anyone you have guardianship over. For instance, an elderly parent who has Alzheimer's or dementia or needs care, and you have custody of them, or adult children who are no longer children but also have things like autism and other issues that cannot function on their own. So if you're their guardian or you're the parent for a minor, that's your nuclear family. Not your cousins, not your uncle, not your aunt, not your father, not your mother, not your grandparents. So from that standpoint, it was always going to divide people. So I'm gobsmacked that people, just stunned that people are talking about this is dividing families. Of course it's going to divide families. Of course, I understand that in many of these cases, it's just an emotional response from people who assumed that they were going to be coming to America. And I appreciate that. But there are people who are not being honest with themselves, who know that this was said from the outset, not by the U.S. government, but rather by me. I told you. In fact, I emphasized the point last year when I was in South Africa after the Hermanus meet and greet, which was early on in my trip. And that gentleman said, I'm coming, my wife's not. And I already mentioned it on my program before I even went to South Africa last year. From February 7th onwards, that this was going to happen. It's unfortunate. And it's sad news for me to hear that this person who contacted me this morning seems like an upright person, a forthright person, but made a mistake. Unfortunately, mistakes in South Africa are dismissed. If you are convicted of a crime, you may think it's minor or petty. The U.S. government doesn't look at it the same way. If you're Somali, though, the chances of being arrested or having a police record for, you know, breaking and entering or a DUI or something like that are non-existent. So how are they ever going to prove that and deem you ineligible? So unfortunately, we get people from other countries because there's no proper policing and no proper criminal justice system who make mistakes or outright criminals who slip into the country because it's difficult to vet them in that respect. And that's a shortcoming of the vetting system. It's always been there. But for those coming from first world or what used to be first world countries like South Africa, the fact that your government maintains records, the fact you have a criminal justice system works against you when the government is harsh in its determination. If the person whom I know is telling me the truth, and I have no reason to doubt them, then this decision seems rather harsh for something that happened well over 2 decades ago. But it is the reality. Now, some people are encouraging the folks who got that to do a Freedom of Information Act, and this person is welcome to do it, as is anyone else. But as I said before, I'd be surprised if they told you why, although I've now seen a few letters that give people reasons why, but the letters are contradictory, saying it's not waiverable and telling them the reason. So why do you want to know the reason other than to settle your heart? That's fine. I appreciate that. It's not going to change anything, however, because there's no right for reconsideration, no referral for reconsideration. That's been eliminated, and there's no appeal. And that's unfortunate. But there are support groups that are working to help people in this situation. Also, a couple of members of Congress are looking into this situation, but don't hold out hope that that will change anything. If it does, that's fantastic. But if you put all your eggs in that basket, you're going to be disappointed. I've told you from the outset what you do is send in your PRM email or send your statement of interest, and then when the intake questionnaire came along, do the intake questionnaire, continue your life as if nothing's going to happen. If and when called, then go. Answer their questions honestly and provide the information they request. And that's all you can do. That's the only control you have over this program. You have no other control over it. That's the nature of it. The U.S. government is not obliged to take anyone in this country. It's not. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the harsh reality of it. Thank you for tuning in, and I wish all those who are waiting or those who've gotten such a letter the very best.